Oh dear, hang on. This is not working at all. Let's try this instead. Hang on. Oh goodness. Bear with me. Well, that's just embarrassing. Oh, this is awesome. Okay, those don't work either. That doesn't work. Oh dear. Well, it would appear that for whatever reason, hi. Yeah, so it appears that for whatever reason, the little mixer is going to be a problem here. So, how do I do this? Oh, I know. Let me do this. I can restart the mixer, if you'll bear with me. Yeah, I'll do that. Here's a little tune I was going to play at the end. Something that I did with a friend a long time ago that kind of went with what I was going to talk about tonight. So let me play that while I try to do this, and we'll see what happens. Hang on. Oh, hey, look at that. It came back. Oh, my goodness gracious. It's been... wow. I can't even tell you. So, yes, it's been quite an adventure the last few weeks. Hi, welcome. Glad you're here. Oh, man. It has been a mess. Okay, so we're not doing noodles anymore, so let me get off that. Let me do this. Okay, so we're talking about grace tonight. And this is probably one of the more challenging ones for me. Because, well, I'm just gonna throw it out there. I've been not doing great of late, and not just physically. I mean that's kind of where it started, and where the locus of a lot of the problems are. Certainly is that I didn't expect that I would suddenly be completely disabled at this point in my life, right? Moreover, and I think this is probably the more difficult part to admit, or at least to come to terms with, right, is that throughout my life, I kind of, I've been open about this. Like I was kind of standoffish, right, with the Creator for a good portion of my life. I discovered early on that not only was there something beyond what we could see, but that it was profoundly influential in this life. And so I didn't much question the difference. I mean, it was clear to me the difference between good and bad and light and dark. But I also, again, as I mentioned before, was raised in a very religious, very legalistic upbringing. And so I discovered, to my great dismay, that I was very bad at being good, very good at being bad. And yet, right, I still had, I guess you would say, a healthy fear of the Creator. And so for the early part of my life, I spent a good portion of it, like I said, kind of in this uneasy standoff, right? Like, I won't bother you, you don't bother me too much, and everything will be fine. Of course, till it wasn't. And, I've told the story before. Finally, I stopped running, and I was very surprised that their interest was not at all seemingly in what I did or did not do, but in that my heart was broken. And so I was very unhappy about, going from a life in the entertainment industry to suddenly, imagining that I was going to become Ned Flanders, hey diddly neighbor, there's nothing, nothing I wanted less. But what I discovered to my amazement was that, again, that wasn't their interest at all. What was their interest was that my heart was broken, and that in order to be in any way, fixed, I had to acknowledge that and let go, and let all these, what I thought at the times were these terrible things happen to me. things that I would never have wanted or imagined to happen. And yet, of course, I find out later, each of which was probably necessary, right, to move me along. Probably many of which would not have been necessary had I not been so hard-headed. I am nothing if not a bit stubborn sometimes. Um, but ultimately, what I came to was that this amazing, brilliant, fascinating being that created everything also cared a great deal about not just all of his children, but, me in particular. And not like in particular as compared to anybody else, but just specifically, like it was an intimate relationship. He seemed to show interest even in silly little things, like things I, wanted or things that shouldn't be important, of any import at all. But I found someone who wanted to make me happy, and not just trying to make me happy by giving me things, but to fill me with a sense of purpose and make me into a person that I was actually happy with instead of ashamed of. Now, you'd think that after 20 plus years of doing that I'd be that person. And unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that I feel like I'm no closer. I know that I am because the evidence bears it out in my life. But inside, many, I've described it sometimes this way, like when you're in the darkness, everything around you is dark and you don't know any difference, right? And you can be drawn even to a little flicker. But when you get into the presence of the bright light, suddenly, not only can you see everything around you, but you can see all the things on you as well. And you begin to notice that you've got all kinds of problems. I got more problems than a math textbook, let me tell you. More issues than National Geographic. And the going, being slow, it took, time. And here's the thing I think, share with you tonight, right, is that I think I understood, like many things in Scripture, I sort of understand the words before I understand the meaning, right? There's like this, what I call the 18-inch mile between your head and your heart, that difference between intellectually understanding something and really having it sink in, right? Really making it a part of you. And that, so when he says, he's asked, Master, what is the greatest commandment, right? And he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your strength and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. On these hang all the law and the prophets. And it struck me with, again, just the great weight of it, that that second part, love your neighbor as yourself, is impossible if you do not and cannot love yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. And so you must love yourself first before you can love your neighbor. And how do you do that? Well, first you have to learn how to give and receive love, and that comes from your relationship with your Creator, because that's the only perfect and real form of love. And everything else is a substitute. It's an illusion, right? A facade. And so you will always be tricked into chasing down the illusion, the facade, until you experience the real. But got through that part. But then you get to the part where, love your neighbor as yourself. And I had to acknowledge and come to a place of realizing that I didn't really love myself. For the longest time, I'm not even sure I liked myself. Hey, welcome. Glad you're here. I went through ridiculous machinations and gyrations and gesticulations when I was younger, um, trying to get people to like me because and most did, right? I was, gregarious, entertaining individual, um, but not everyone did, right? And certainly I could, you tell the difference, but I suppose I have always been one of those people for whom there is very little middle ground. People either did like me or they did not. Right? They either really liked me or they really did not. And I, when I was younger, I would take it personally, like, oh, what I do wrong, right? And so I'd go through these ridiculous and very unhealthy efforts. Very sorry, man. It's been it's been hard. I'm so sorry. Anyway, so yeah, I went through an enormous amount, um, very unhealthy ways, spending money on people and gifts and doing things. And I mean, I love doing stuff for people, and so I certainly justified it and all that sort of stuff. That I was giving, I was generous and all that sort of stuff. But I understood later that it takes time as you grow up to realize kind of what's going on. But I think that what I experienced is probably not that dissimilar from most people if you're honest with yourself. That there are parts about us that we are uncomfortable with or could use some improvement. I mean, certainly there is a whole wealth of self-help books. I tried to go find one at the Barnes and Noble, and I said, "Where's the self-help section?" He said, "If I told you, it would defeat the purpose." But and I see this over and over. I think well, again, I haven't darkened the door of a church building quite some time, but I used to, and not only frequently, but I used to work in them, and I would see people who would be the shout the loudest about the grace and forgiveness that they had received, and yet they would be the stingiest with giving it out. I just couldn't understand it. I didn't make sense to me, and because it doesn't. But ultimately, I think I just want to get here that God, it's been a number of years now, probably 15 years, something like that, where I was continuing to let people, treat me badly and walk over me, right? And I wouldn't stand up for myself generally, and all the thoughts that are included with it. Oh, it's selfish, blah blah blah. But you can't really, honestly, you can't take care of yourself or your family if you don't really take care of yourself, right? If you don't at least take care of your needs. And I got to say, first, I understood, again, intellectually, I understood the metaphor of it's better to be a reservoir than a river, right? Because a river, when it's got, when there's precipitation and water flows, it's fast moving and it waters everything. But when it's gone and you hit a dry season, then there's nothing there. And a reservoir, on the other hand, fills up, and when it is full, then it slowly trickles over, but it holds the reserves. And then when it stops raining, if it's a dry season, there still is enough left. And then when the season comes back and it's the rainy season, there's more than enough. And if you don't have that reserve, that reservoir, how are you going to serve others? What can you give? And so, in another of those difficult conversations that sometimes the Creator has with me, because I'm hard-headed and stubborn, and sometimes I kind of consider myself spiritually retarded. But this is where Mom comes and sits down and says, "Hey, if you won't do it for you, do it for me. Please stop being so mean to this person that I love so much," because I, like many others, readily engage in negative self-talk. It comes easy, oh, I always pick the wrong line to get in. Oh, I always do that. God, I'm so stupid. I do it all the time. And I know that, like, when my wife says something and she goes, God, I'm so dumb. I just like, oh, I hate to hear that because she's not, right. And I don't like to hear those negative words, but I find myself saying it, or at least did find myself saying it over and over and over. And it took a long time, but you don't say it, but still you think it. And so, over the past, couple of years here, and again, if you're, presumably if you're here, you're not new. If you are, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. It's a strange path that people find to get here, but presumably those of you who are here or who will listen are familiar with me and some of my story, and you know that over the past 3.5, 4, coming up on 5 years now, I had been dealing with a variety of health complications that were undiagnosed for the longest time, and very curious, very strange things that were really just causing problems in my life. And then finally I got a diagnosis, and then wham, I got hit with something new, seemingly related, but as yet undiagnosed. But the point here being that it's especially the second one, but really the myalgic encephalomyelitis to begin with, really did a number, right? It's a subset of chronic fatigue syndrome. And so it just means you just never have the energy. And when you do expend the energy, it hurts like a lot. And so as it began to progress, and it is degenerative and progressive, and so as it began to do that, I began to end up spending more and more time bed-bound, in bed, not able to do things, and finding that when I'd get up, I'd get very ill with just a little, the slightest amount of exertion. And sometimes, without not even physical exertion, sometimes just mental exertion, trying to do paperwork or make phone calls, plan things out would put me down. And the thing is, it's not, again, so much of it doesn't make sense, and I'm not wanting to send people off in some weird medical rabbit hole going down to learn all about ME, but it is, again, it's progressive, it's degenerative, and the more I learn, the more, depressing, I guess it is. It's hard. And I try not to make too big a deal of it. I'm not, my point here is not to complain or do anything of that, but what I will say, and this is what I thought important to share, is that, again, having taken a period of time away from this, and then again feeling very strongly led to come back and again just share this time with you in a different way than I was before, but really just more encouragement. But I wasn't feeling very encouraged, and haven't been, right, because especially the last couple of months have been so difficult that I suddenly realized that all the things that I'd wanted to do may be just out of reach. Like I don't know if I can do the things that I had planned to do. And then I come back to this, what I mentioned before, where I had this uneasy standoff with Dad, right? And even when I came back and accepted his calling and to be in an intimate relationship, I just kind of took the position that, when you call me, I'll be ready, right? And ready to go. And suddenly now it's time to go. And I'm unable to do much of anything. And it's crushing. And I realized that, my whole life I've been one that I was prolific. I did everything. I had no matter what I did, I had multiple jobs, all kinds of things going on, fingers in every pie. I was doing all kinds of stuff. And now for nearly a year, I've been almost entirely bedbound. And it's like, what do I do with that? And inevitably it becomes a challenge to even, look at yourself in the mirror, right? Like, what am I doing? And again, my point here is not to bum you out or cry poor me. What I'm here to say is that I think that we all get to this place where sometimes maybe it's easier to give grace to others than it is to give it to ourselves. And I'm sure that there is, some truth in the matter that we know where our skeletons are. We know where the bodies are buried. And, I know what I'm made of. I know what the truth is, right, about myself. But I know that, I'm growing and I'm, not nearly what I was, but not yet, what I want to be. But I feel like I'm doing nothing, right? Like I'm not only, like I'm able to accomplish nothing, and it's such a drag, man. It is, and so I noted that I started to be unkind to myself again and become angry that I couldn't do these things. And not angry with Dad or the circumstances, but angry with myself. Like I'm, lazy and unmotivated. And I mean, I'll be honest, there are times that, yes, I am unmotivated if you're depressed and you don't feel well and you know that doing the things is going to make you very sick. Yeah, there's a point where you don't feel like doing it. But the truth is that, that most of it is simply a result that I can't do it, or I risk, serious complications. And what's worse, right, is again, I hate the circumstances that I'm in. Like, for example, one of the things that I love the most is relationships, and I'm so grateful, even for the the few remaining relationships. And again, I come here and I tell you, when I'm here week after week, that often I don't come because I want to. I come because I feel like I need to. I should, and that I want to do good, right? I want to help, and I feel like, God, am I helping? Am I not? Like, how is this helping anybody? And then I got a wonderful email from Winston. Thank you so much. And all I had to do was reply, right? I read it. It was exactly what I needed to hear at exactly the right time to lift me up. And I was so ill and so sick. And I was just like, okay, I'll get to it. And then, like, now, better part of a week has gone by. And I feel so bad. And people are like, hey, I'll call you, and then I have like memory problems. And I feel like I'm complaining, but the whole point here is not complaining. It's that I think sometimes, again, that if we make a deliberate and concerted effort to follow the way, that it becomes like, we can see things like this, right? About grace, right? That sin will not rule over you because you're not under law, but under grace. Okay, that sounds good, right? But what is that really, right? What is that really? But here is where I think Dad kind of reached to me, right, to say, hey, like, none of this is or would be you doing anything anyway, right? I do as I please, and all you got to do is say yes. And so I do. I say yes. He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. And so that is the mindset that I'm now trying to adopt and go forward, which is that I can't do what I thought I would be able to do. But that's going to have to be okay. It's going to have to be, and it always was, going to have to be in His power, right? Therefore, I will most gladly boast all the more about my weakness, so that Christ's power may reside in me. And so that's my encouragement for you tonight, right? If you have been in similar circumstances, and I sent a text message to a friend earlier, hadn't heard from him in a while. To be fair, he hadn't heard from me either because hunkered down. But I always know that when I am going through it, really going through it, that those who are really close are going through it as well. This is again, we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places, and that the weapons of our warfare are not material, but rather spiritual. And so I look and I see that when we're getting hit, it's not like not me, just me, right? I'm not going to go, oh, poor me, help me. I know that immediately I need to start praying for others because we're all getting hit. And I know that to be true. And again, I don't know what your specific circumstances are, but I know if you're here, you're probably going through it too. And that because he told us he that endures to the end will be saved. And we know that this is going to be a time of trouble, and there is trouble. I can't get through a day without, feels like everything is falling apart, going wrong. Like no matter what I do, like can nothing just be easy? Just like it's like everything, and it wears on you, right? To where you just want to give up. But I know better, right? And I know that again, that my strength comes from the Lord and the grace. And that when the Creator, who is perfect, can have grace for me, who is broken, then what am I doing that I can't have grace for others or even for myself? What kind of what kind of sadist would I be to continue to be cruel to someone that I know He loves? I wouldn't be that way to you. And I get a sense that I'm probably not alone in this that particular character flaw. That I'm not the only one who could be particularly hard on themselves, especially when things aren't going well. And I'll tell you, all I know to do when things get difficult and the road is longer than I think I can manage, right? All I do is talk to Dad. That's all I can do. And I encourage you to do the same. That you will listen. A contrite spirit and a broken heart He will not deny. Just be honest. And He is there. So again, I'm sorry. It's a short, little brief chat tonight, and I apologize again if it seems downbeat or not particularly woohoo exciting, but it's honest, right? It's been a tough few months, and but as I look around, I'm not the only one, and I don't think I have it particularly bad compared to other people, some of them. So I'm not here to complain or to go, oh, poor me, right? But hey, if you spare a prayer, I could sure use it. And if you need one, I'm sure willing to offer it in return. And I think that's mostly what I have tonight, right? Is that be not dismayed. Be of good cheer, of good courage. I've had a really crappy few weeks, but I'm gonna hang on because I know that He loves me, and I know that He loves you too. And if you're willing to walk with Him, He'll show you that. I guess even to set up this departure thing, I have to say that I had been, especially when I first got hit with the kind of new thing, that the neurological thing that caused all the tremors and what, like, again, it presents like late stage Parkinson's. And I'm finding more about it. It's still not diagnosed. It's got probably something to do with demyelination, the like a delamination of the myelin layer, the sheath that surrounds your nerves. That's very much similar to the diagnosis I already have, which is myalgic encephalomyelitis. So probably connected, right, to some degree there. But again, in the midst of that, he is there, right? And when I first kind of got it, I got a little bit manic because I didn't know what was going to happen. I wanted to make sure that I could accomplish things because I didn't know how quickly it would end me. And so I started making some phone calls and just wanted to talk to people I hadn't talked to in a long time and let them know I love them. And mostly that went pretty well, other than, I stopped doing phone or video chats because I didn't like the look that they gave me, that it was scary. They'd see me and they could immediately tell I wasn't doing well. And so I didn't like the pity, But one of the calls that I made, somebody that I'd worked with for a number of years musically, and we hadn't talked for a while. And I had reached out and got kind of a harsh, basically, don't want to talk to me. And I wasn't quite sure why, kind of shitty email in return. But it's like, and the only reason I bring it up is because this last week, following a lovely email from Winston, was a email from this gal, and just berating me, like going back, like, oh, emailed 10 months ago, and you were going to call and then didn't. I'm like, yeah, because you told me not to. I mean, you're pretty clear about it. Anyway, the whole point of that, it's been a lot of that, just stuff breaking my heart. But it made me go back through, it's about 15 years ago, right after I'd moved back to Seattle. She had flown out, and we did some songwriting stuff together. And this is one of the ones that we came up with. So we'll leave it with that. Hope you have a great night. I'll see you again soon. I could use your prayer.
You can grace abound, so from sin we'd be set free. And all we have to do in Him is simply to believe. His yoke is easy and His burden is light. And by redemption we are precious in His sight. It's the power of redemption and the beauty of His grace, the promise of forgiveness. Well, one day we will see Him face to face. It's the power of redemption. It's the beauty of His grace, the promise of forgiveness. Well, one day we will see Him face to face. You're my rescue, my Savior, the Redeemer of my soul, my mighty fortress, my tower. In you I'm made whole. You're my refuge, my Savior, the Redeemer of my soul, my mighty fortress, my tower. It's in you I'm made whole, redeemed, so that I could live free. Redeemed to live. Redeemed so that I could live free. Redeemed to live. I've been redeemed so that I can live free. I've been redeemed to live. I've been redeemed so that I could die free. I've been redeemed to live. I've been redeemed so that I could live.